by Grant and Peter from Macquarie University, who are going to talk about their implementation of one of our products called Upstream. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking through, just to level set with people, what our end user computing products actually are. So there's 4 products we've got in market, and I'll talk you through a couple of those ones, so the 2 of the more commonly deployed ones, and where we see them deployed and why. And then we're going to turn it over to Grant, and Grant and I are going to talk a little bit about a project they've run through in a replacement of a virtual desktop product that they had in place. And then we're going to give a demo a go. So demo without a net, we'll see how we go. We should be all right, which Peter's going to run through for us. So like I said, I'd like to level set initially just to talk through a few of our products and how and where we see them deployed and why people deploy them. So there's 4 products that sit under the banner of end user computing for us. It probably sounds a little bit counterintuitive to think about end user computing products as something that sits in someone's hand coming from a cloud company. But these products, they run in the cloud, so they compute for these products, run in the cloud, and then we stream the services down. So there's 4 products that sit under that banner right now. So there's a desktop as a service product called Workspaces. There's an app streaming product or app virtualization platform called Upstream. There's WorkLink. So WorkLink is a very new product for us that gives you the ability to access web resources from a mobile phone, so internal web resources from a mobile phone securely, and WorkDocs, which is a content repository and storage product that we have as well. So what I want to do is touch on a little bit of why Amazon has end user computing products. So I suppose we've obviously been doing cloud for a number of years, and through that time we look at opportunities to enable our customers to take the benefit of cloud and apply it to some of their challenges they have internally in their environment. So we saw the opportunity to give our customers products that can transform the way they think about how they can use those products, where they can deploy them, what use cases they can go after. So broadly speaking, and a few of these apply to generic end user product, and so this technology or this technology set has been around for a long time, call it 20, 25 years, but we thought we might be able to reinvent the way that people think about them. So broadly speaking, security is at the heart of it, so being able to access resources, internal network resources from any device, anywhere, anytime, is a pretty key element to it. As is the ability to scale it up and down. So obviously the standard cloud feature of being able to offer flexibility into your environment, being able to scale resources as you require them, is an important feature to it as well, which is a little bit unusual for end user computing products. Traditionally, you'd buy a whole bunch of hardware and a ton of licenses and try and deploy that together in some sort of cohesive way, especially in the university space or tertiary education space. That's hard to do because you've got pretty peaky kind of workloads. So for 9 months of the year, you have to deliver this service generally, and in that time, really, it's about a month of the year when it really peaks around the end of semester. So it's quite a hard thing to deliver normally. So the flexibility, it's a natural fit for cloud. So being able to offer this stuff via the cloud. In some ways, we see an opportunity to simplify operations for people as well. So these environments usually are pretty complex to put together because there's elements of networking, security, infrastructure, and obviously end user experience wrapped into it as well. So usually there's a lot of different moving parts to getting one of these things working. So we saw the opportunity to remove a bit of that pain or undifferentiated heavy lifting from our customers and take that on ourselves. So we don't talk about Workspaces, for instance, as a virtual desktop product. It's desktop as a service, which there's a slight variation there, a slight twist there in the fact that we take away the hard bits, simplify it down to you guys just having to think about application deployments. What am I deploying? Who am I deploying it to? And whereabouts do those resources need to be? And stop thinking about configuring storage and have I got the right compute set up? Have I got enough licenses and the like? So we saw there was a good opportunity to reimagine how this stuff could work. Workspaces is one of our products. So like I said, it's a desktop as a service product. Some of the interesting things about Workspaces, so we sell it on a monthly or an hourly basis, which once again is a pretty interesting idea. It's on a per user basis, so we do effectively t-shirt sizes of different hardware configurations for the workspace. So small, medium, large, extra large, extra, extra large, a few graphics instances in there as well. Once again, there's a drive, especially in tertiary education, around things like data science, AI, ML, more visualization, video editing and the like, that's driving more of a need to being able to get high-end computing in the hands of people and rip it out from under people's desks. So instead of buying really expensive workstations and sticking it under desks for researchers, maybe virtualizing that and paying per hour for it. So we're seeing a strong shift in our customer sets in education to look for services like this. So we see it usually, once again, because you don't have to buy it all up front and buy this big monolithic stack of stuff, we see people being very specific about how they use it. So instead of generically building something and hoping people will come and consume it, people are being far more tactical. So it can be a lot more flexible on how they think about this stuff. So they basically build a capability on Workspaces or AppStream and then deliver use cases off those, which I know sounds really generic and really pretty obvious way to think of it. But by being able to be a lot more tactical and flexible means that you can deliver services a lot quicker and a lot more targeted, so a lot better result. The example of doing video editing in one of these things before would be very hard to do with on-prem hardware because you have to go and buy a heck of a lot of hardware and hope that people will use it. Graphics hardware is pretty expensive to buy at scale and manage at scale as well, whereas with us you can literally get down to paying for that per hour, which is interesting. AppStream, so AppStream is the product we're going to talk about today that Macquarie's rolled out. So it's an app virtualization product, similar to Workspaces in the fact that we remove a lot of the pain away that's normally associated with delivering these kinds of services. So it's literally delivering down individual applications down to users. It's been in the Sydney region, so it's been in market for about 3.5 years. It's been in Sydney for a little over 2 years. And we're seeing broad adoption of it across a bunch of different areas. And I might just flip to this really quickly. Once again, we see this play out in sort of 4 different ways. One way is in education institutions in virtualization of labs. So that's a really common thing that we see, not just in tertiary but secondary and even down to primary as well, because there's very specific applications that need to get delivered down to these users. And it might not be 1,000 applications, but it might just be a small subset of applications you want to deliver, and you don't want to deliver a desktop with it. So that's one really common use case. Another one is business applications. So things like SAP GUI is a really common one for us to deliver, or some garden variety 32-bit old ugly application that you don't want to have to manage anymore on desktops. People are putting that stuff into AppStream and delivering it down and paying per hour for that access as well. And the other one, like I said before, a lot of graphics-based deployments as well. So people are starting to pick up more things that have got heavy visualization requirements on the front end as well is being plopped into AppStream, and so deploying really light laptops, desktops, tablets, and the like to deliver it to, and all the grunts sitting in the cloud. So what we're going to do now, so that's level set for you guys, just to give you a flavour of 2 of the main services we deliver in end-use computing for AWS. What we're going to do now, I'm going to introduce Grant and get him to talk a little bit about the project they've run through in deploying AppStream. So,
all right.
Grant, how you going?
Yeah, good, thanks, Ian. Yep, I think
Fantastic.
everybody can hear me.
So what am I doing? So Grant, why don't you tell us a little bit about Macquarie? I'm sure a lot of people have heard the name before. Tell us a bit about the uni and tell us a little bit about your role at the uni.
Okay, so Macquarie University, so we're located in North Ryde up in Sydney. Just in terms of some of the facts, I suppose, we have about 38,000 students. We've got about 3,000 or so staff. By the time you take into account the casual labour, it's upwards of 4,000 plus. 2 main campuses. We're on 125 hectares of land in North Ryde. We have about 65, 70 buildings roughly. And an IT department of about 100 people centrally located. We're a distributed IT workforce because we have a number of faculties and departments. My role at the university, I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Applications, so basically look after all the technology aspects from a central enterprise standpoint. That's anything from the optical fibre that comes into the campus supplying the internet through to the applications and cloud activities that we operate and run.
And everything in between.
Everything in between, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic. So can you just spend a little bit of time talking about the project you guys undertook? And as you can see, so we've used the slides placeholder for that. So talking through the process of how you made the selection, what sort of benefits you've seen from the project as well, and,
Yep.
and how you're seeing the operating model work differently as well, which is
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, some good questions. Fundamentally, about 5 to 6 years ago, we had a need to supply a means of delivering applications to students so that we could deal with giving them access to do their lectures or the tutorials and study materials independent of coming to a physical facility. It was largely driven at that time to help us deal with space constraints, how we would manage the physical rooms that we had. The situation we were in was we'd put in a solution, it had been running for a number of years, the hardware was reaching end of life, and so we had to make a decision, do we invest in buying more hardware on premise, or do we try and come up with a slightly different solution? We ran a small proof of concept. We'd seen basically, it's seen that Amazon had made the announcement about AppStream, and it looked like an interesting technology. And so we started to do some investigation and then wanted to start off with a pilot project just to really see how it would stack up in the environment that we wanted to run. Some of the things that have probably changed from the original solution, it's a little bit easier to run than the previous solution that we had. It's sort of like less pain, more gain, actually, is what we're getting. We haven't had to deal with a lot of the infrastructure problems. The server team, for example, we don't look after SAN storage. We have to deal with servers, infrastructure, power, cooling, etc. on the campus. And just the licensing cost as well. We're really just dealing with the licensing for the applications that we want to deliver, not all the overheads that typically come along with that.
Yeah, and you guys had a desktop, so a full desktop,
Yep.
and you moved to more of an application-specific deployment.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we were delivering a full desktop, and originally it was down to even delivering the browser. For example, as things like browser standards have become more ubiquitous, it's now really just about the applications, because the students just typically want to get one or two applications. We have statistics and marketing subjects, for example, where they're using SAS and SPSS, through to some of our other survey tools that we would use as part of courses that are being run.
Yeah, fantastic. So what we're going to do now, and like I said, demo without a net. So Pete's going to take us through a demo.
Yep.
So, Greg, do you want to set the scene a little bit
Yep.
about for what you're going to see? And if we can flip over to the laptop down the front.
We'll flick over to them. So what we're going to show you is some of the background information on how we set the environment up, and we'll take you into the actual environment. We use single sign-on through Octave as our sort of main entry into getting authorization and authentication, and all of our AV people.
Can we get the screen flicked over to the laptop down the front? Oh, there we go. Fantastic.
So what we're looking at here is, so we run an internal wiki that we describe the product and the release. So this is essentially the information that we post it out when we roll it out. On all of our managed desktop, actually, if you've got a staff laptop, there's a screensaver that comes up to show you what's involved in it. Peter's just showing you what it looks like and the course catalogue. So you can see that there's a large amount of information. We largely derived a lot of that by experimenting on ourselves. So in other words, looking at the applications that we'd previously deployed, which then gave us the access into it. What we're going to do now is just actually log in. So what you can see here on the screen, this is our authentication through the Octave system that we run. We have a service called OneID. It's really just an internal name or a product name for a single unique name. Peter's going to log in. He'll be authenticated. So we have the Octave system, which is picking up credentials from an Active Directory service. And once we get into the authenticated service there, what we're looking at is the applications that we want to typically deliver. So this is the starting point where we're at now, and what Peter's just doing is kicking off the session. Now, you'll notice there's a bit of a delay for things happening, and we'll just come to a moment in a slide just giving you some background as to why we have that delay.
Can we flick back for a second, just to the other slides? Great, thanks.
So as I mentioned, what we're doing is, you can see there up on the left, we've got the user with their OneID credentials. Their authentication is handled by Octave, which is sort of prefacing the application catalog. That's taking credentials out of our Active Directory. It then gets you to the app catalog, and the user's then able to choose one of the applications that they'd like to actually activate. They get a user login per session there, again authenticated against the directory, and then we get to the applications that you see. So we found that by essentially moving to Okta as the front end there, for example, it's giving us identity as a service, again freeing us up a little bit. The app catalog is about 38 applications or thereabouts. And there are a range of applications to deal with some of the, as I said, the different types of course material that we're currently running. So, you know, business school, for example, marketing, statistics, surveys, etc. So we'll flip back. One more slide. Sorry. Yep.
Just quickly, so I think the Octa thing is interesting, right? So the way that you ran the Octa project almost in parallel to the AppStream project, because identity is obviously a big part of it. And you're viewing AppStream as kind of in amongst a bunch of web-enabled or internet-enabled applications, which is really interesting compared to the way a lot of other universities think. A lot of other universities are still thinking about internal application sources and SaaS applications being separate, but you've kind of merged the two of them.
Yeah, I guess the driver there is really just trying to streamline the experience. So we're effectively trying to make it, you know, as painless as possible to get directly to the application that you want when you need it and as fast as practical. I think we've got the slide up here. Just something you may have noticed when we kicked off the demo, there was a countdown timer, essentially, as we spun up the session. And you'll see here that we're using two different fleet types. So at the moment, we're using the on-demand, and you'll see there the user session startup is up to 2 minutes. We've gone down that path particularly because, as you'll notice there, it's optimized for cost savings. The alternative is to have always on, essentially a reserved fleet that's active. And at the moment, we're in the first couple of weeks into a new semester, and we've rolled out the service, and we're really just sort of testing the waters a little bit with seeing how the students react to that, you know, that delay time that they have. Excuse me. Whilst we look at what the cost is that we're running, as the usage matures, we're going to sort of look at balancing the amount of always on versus the on demand that we have.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way you guys have approached the project, like from having the wiki page and the FAQ, trialing. It's interesting watching how you're using a lot of experimentation around the deployment, which is great because you're able to, right? You're able to tweak and change a service as you're going through, which is you got a really kind of light touch up front, and kind of as you get further into it, it seems to get more in depth and better understood.
Yeah, I'd say it's. I mean, it sort of fits the model we're trying to operate at, which is to be able to be more nimble and agile and move faster. So a little bit of experimentation, understand how it goes, you know, roll out the service, see what the feedback's like. You know, really short, sharp feedback loops that we wanted to run on the project. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Can we flick back to the laptop for a second, please? Oh, we have. Amazing.
So now we've got one of the applications that's running an R console, for example. Peter's just going to fire up another app and as many apps. Now, so the users that can actually operate, you know, as many apps as they need to. Obviously, typically, you know, once you get past about 2 or 3 applications, you probably wouldn't be switching all 38 of them on at once. It's just a little bit too much. But one of the things that we've also found very useful is the fact that we can map it to cloud drives that we have. So our students are using the G Suite range of products. Staff are on Office 365, so OneDrive and G Drive. And so the users are able to map to those services in order to store their files. So again, keeping that information readily at hand, close access to the services, but all cloud enabled, so we don't have to deal with on-premise infrastructure.
Yeah, fantastic. So, and Pete, you're going to throw up.
Yeah. So essentially, as you saw before, the sign-in experience from the portal catalog there. this is just, again, we've disconnected the session, and this is another advantage we found. Students may or may not, inadvertently shut down their laptops in the event of if we did have any power failures in areas. Once they've got a 30-minute window where they can come back and restore their session, or if they're working from home, for example, pick up their laptop and move, or their device, there's still a window where they're able to get back in and get back to the work that they've been working on.
Yeah, fantastic.
In terms of feedback, of course, which is one of those earlier questions you saw about how we how we making it work in production, tongue-tied. We've actually got a survey so that we can quickly capture any student feedback or user feedback that we're getting. Fairly short and sharp there, just to sort of see if we've run into any problems. Feedback to date has been positive. We haven't had any complaints so far. And then the other aspect is how we actually, so the feedback side is on the user side. On the administration side, we've set up a real-time monitoring system. So basically utilizing CloudWatch metrics that the service provides us. We've deployed an EC2 instance, which is essentially providing these web pages that are telling us what's happening. This is actually live data right now. So at the moment, we've got 26 users currently actively in use. And it gives us historical data so we can look at how the platform's performing. It'll scale up without us having to do anything because we've got scaling policies set there so that if we start to reach that 200 threshold before we reach there, another batch of servers are sort of spun up ready to go in the background. And we can scale it out as large as we need to.
What's your limit, just as I can't remember what it is. Is it 1,000?
1,000 at the moment, yeah.
Soft limit.
Yeah. So you'd literally reach 1,000 concurrent users before anyone called?
Yes, yeah, correct, yeah.
Which
is compared to where we used to run, where we could, on average, run about 300 sessions.
Before people started screaming.
Yeah, for a desktop. Yeah, correct, yeah.
Yeah, right. So it makes a massive difference for how you guys can operationalise a service like this, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. Can we flick back to the slides, please? Great. Which I suppose leads us into the final section, which is what's next. So now you look forward beyond the initial deployment. It'd be great to understand, where are you going to take this? What are your plans?
The next main thing we're really going to do is we've got the sort of the basic fleet out there running for the applications that we use. We're starting to get early signs of users wanting to have very specialised sort of fleets of the applications. So be that they need higher end configurations on the server side for the apps that we want to run, GPU based, for example, large R processing, RStudio would be another good example that we see. So, and that sort of spans where we start to tap into the researchers that are wanting to utilise this service more. We're also seeing the added benefit that it's freeing up the sort of the day-to-day repetitive tasks that we used to do from the IT department that was actually operating the service. So that's freeing up resources for other activities that we can operate. In terms of advice for others looking to embark on it, I'd say one of the really nice things we found was the fact we could start small and grow large, and we could choose the rate at which we wanted to do that. A little bit of experimentation, as I said, very, very quick feedback loops. You can iterate very fast. And the service was very quick. The monitoring page that we showed you before, really just took a couple of days to get set up. And that was using teams across our faculty users, our internal systems team and web development team. So really quick, we were able to get metrics. We have a screen up, showing the status and performance of the system internally. So really that just being able to a little bit of experimentation and run it very agile.
Yeah, one thing I really, when we were talking the other day, one thing I found really interesting was, so you guys run central IT, and there's a constant struggle in universities going through how do you manage the expectation and deliver against expectation of faculty while still managing central IT, so delivering services that can fit with everyone. And you mentioned that you're looking to be able to allow a faculty to actually manage their own applications, even though you guys manage a platform, which is compared to trying to do this sort of stuff in the past, a bit of a big step, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of a distributed management system or management plan, because when you do it all centrally, you become the bottleneck, and then of course that can lead to negative feedback because the central group could be considered a roadblock. Distributing the control, also it's closer to the end user and the customer. They know the applications they want to run. They know the types of use cases very, very intimately. And so they're able to fine-tune it. And we want to enable our faculties and departments to have that option where they can create the fleet of services or servers with the applications they want to deploy to their user base.
Yeah, so push the control out to them, I suppose, for their little section, which is fantastic. Exactly. And I suppose one final question around licensing. So it's interesting, the idea before of you'd have a full desktop, and so it wasn't a lot of granularity around what you're able to, like how people are using it.
Yeah.
I suppose being able to move to application-specific delivery, then you'll be able to get a better viewpoint for that.
Yeah, I think absolutely, and especially as we fine-tune the user base where we've got groups, we know we can target them for a specific set of applications, which then with it brings us a smaller subset of licenses, rather than doing a blanket license across the whole sort of organisation.
Yeah, which is a massive benefit to you guys, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. One final question I've got for you, which was completely unscripted. How big's your team? I was surprised by this number the other day. How big was the team that worked on this project?
Probably about, at its peak, about 6. On average at the moment, it's 2 to 3 people that are really the core part of the team. So a very small team that's driving it out. We certainly do tap into the other areas of the organisation as we need to, but it's on an as-needed basis.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a fantastic, a highly optimised project, right? Run with Agile, it was really well run all the way through, delivery, 3-week sprints and the like. It's really
definitely
impressive.
It definitely worked well.
Yeah. Cool. That's everything. I'll throw it open to the audience if anyone's got any questions for Grant.